Hey, lovelies, this is Janelle, the relationship coach behind the successful invisible. And today I'm here with another episode of Ish I Saw on TikTok. Men don't want love, they want a woman to lose for them. Understand that the fairy tale they refuse to let go is the very thing that is keeping them bitter. Let's get into it. The real reason some men are so triggered when women say, I loved him and the relationship benefited me is because a lot of men don't recognize love unless the woman is losing and suffering, okay? If you're not sacrificing, struggling, shrinking, or drowning with him, he swears you never loved him, or even allowing him to succeed and all of those terrible things are happening to you, he doesn't believe it's love. And that right there is the fantasy, the Fiona in the swamp storyline from Shrek. A woman is supposed to abandon her best friends, her best interest, ignore reality, and prove love by suffering. A lot of men believe love is suffering for women only. So he can feel chosen without ever having to be valuable. And when you refuse to play that role, suddenly you're delusional. If you want to help spotting this mindset early before you get emotionally invested, I have a simple set of tools inside my coffee coaching community. Checklists, vetting questions, and boundary scripts that help you keep your standards without second guessing yourself. Link in the description below if you're ready to date with clarity and stop entertaining fantasy based men.
The death of Shira Seven's husband taught me that romantic fantasies were sold to men and is also believed by men as well. And the current disconnect between men and women today is because men are mourning or refusing to let the myth that fantasies and fairy tale movies have sold to both men and women. Under all the blog posts announcing the death of Shira Seven's husband, I'm paying attention to the posts from men, the comments from men who are saying, "Oh, she never loved her husband. She never loved her husband, and she was just in it for the money, and she, she's the one who her husband." And I'm trying to figure out what is it that would lead them to that conclusion. When she decides to speak out about the death of her husband, she basically said he was older. And we could all see the pictures. He was not an attractive man, right? But he was an older man. I think it was like a 25-year age gap. And she specified that the relationship was very beneficial to her, right? All the ways in which it was beneficial to her, monetary, resource-wise, whatever. And the men are like, you never loved your husband. You never loved your husband. And I realized that from these comments, seeing men say these things, men do not perceive that you can love them and also make sure that a relationship is beneficial to you. They don't think that both things can coexist. And that's when I realized that, well, I've always known this, but it confirms to me that men require you to take from yourself in order to give to them, right? They do not think you love them otherwise. If the love is not irrational, right? If it's not sacrificial on your end, they don't think you love them. You have to be in a negative when you're dealing with them at all times, or they don't think you love them. If you are benefiting in any way from the relationship, they don't perceive it as love, right? If being in a relationship with this man does not come at a loss to you, they don't think you love them. Because she's been with this man for over 20 years and they have 2 children together. Why wouldn't she love him? When you love yourself, you make sure that you're getting what you want. When you love yourself, you make sure that the relationship is beneficial towards you, to you. When you love yourself, you do not sacrifice in ways that do not make sense for you, in ways that do not align with your best interests, right? When you love yourself, you don't lose when you're with a man. They don't think that you can love a man and make sure that you're not losing. And also make sure that you're making rational choices. And I realized that their beef with Shira Seven lies in her destroying that fantasy that you're going to be old, unattractive, right? And you're going to have a younger, attractive woman because she's a very beautiful woman despite her being older now, right? She's 25 years younger than her husband, right? That's going to happen for no reason. And she's going to move with you to your swamp like Fiona did with Shrek, right? Shrek, bald, out of shape, right? No money, lives in a swamp. And Fiona left, beautiful woman, left her kingdom, left a kingdom, okay, to move to the broken down swamp with Shrek. This is the fantasy that they believe in. And this is their problem with Shira Seven, right? She destroys this fantasy. that a younger attractive woman, or just an attractive woman period, right, who has options for so many other things, is going to abandon them all to be with you in a swamp. She did not agree to be with James in his swamp. So they do not think she can love her husband, right? Of course she loves her husband. Why wouldn't she love him? They were with each other for many, many years, and they have 2 children together. But just the mere fact that that relationship was very beneficial to her, they don't think that she also loves him. Men are looking for the rose to their jack, right? Right? A beautiful young woman who's going to agree to drown, okay, with a brokey, with a loser, okay, drown in an ocean when she could have been on a boat to safety with an affluent man. Like these are the fantasies that men want to be real, right? They're living in a fantasy world. They're the ones believing these fairy tales, right? And then it dawned on me that this is the problem. This is the disconnect. This is really the problem that men are having with women today, right? And I'm not sure that they know how to vocalize it, but I'm almost positive that this is the problem that men are having with women today. Why won't you be the Fiona to my Shrek? It really teaches men that they don't have to be worth anything, right? I can just be a man, right? And a woman is going to sacrifice for me. She's going to choose me over herself. Like, this is what they're told. And I realize that when women are like, actually, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, because the reality that we're living in is women quite literally have better options than to do that. They have better options for dating, better options for men, better options for opportunities, period, right? Education, traveling, career, like jobs. Like, women have so many other things to do rather than to jump off the boat with a loser, right? Women have way too many options that they don't have to do that. And instead, women are like, actually, I don't want to live in a swamp with an ogre. um I would like someone who's attractive and who does pretty well for himself, you know? And they start screaming at you, telling you that you're delusional. I've seen men say this a lot to women too. They call women delusional, right? When you're asking for, can you at least be successful and, attractive? They start calling women delusional, and they start trying to find things to pick at to get you to settle for them. Like, they start attacking your weight and your age, and if you have kids and baby daddies and all sorts of things, just so that they can remain in their swamps, right? Just so that they can be the loser who women jump off boats for to be with. Almost everything that men say, you need to flip it around. Remember when I told you that? They'll say that you're treating them bad because they can't treat you bad, right? They're the ones who treat you bad, and they want to treat you bad, but you make it difficult for them to do it, so they'll say that you treat them bad, right? The same is applicable here. So men are calling women delusional because we will not play the role in their fantasy, in the fairy tale that they insist on believing. Men will say that women believe in fairy tale and fantasies when our reality does not align with the fantasy and the myth that they refuse to let go. Women were taught to abandon self for love. Men were taught that love is something that they're going to be able to receive without ever having to be valuable in any way, shape, or form. Women are unlearning this, and men want to cling to it. So when they get online mad about Shira 7 and calling women delusional and saying that they're overestimating their value and all of this stuff, what they're saying is, I still believe in the fantasies and the myths. Why don't you? I made a video talking about how romantic fantasies were also sold to men. And this man decided to leave this comment, basically proving my point. He began to expound, okay, on another romantic fantasy. And it's because, again, they're not living in now. They live in a constant state of like hypothetical, right? Never now. Always promise, potential, and possibility, right? Because in the now, they're very incapable, right? They're failures, so to speak. They're under-resourced. And this is why they have to do that. This man said, a man's fantasy is that the woman loves him at his lowest and he spoils her at his highest. Women want to find a man at the finish line and get that. But what y'all don't realize is that a man who became successful by himself doesn't see any value in you. He uses you, discards you for a younger model. These are the same women who leave and end up cry about how all men are cruel when she only dates men at the finish line.
Squidward, we don't need television. Not as long as we have our imagination. With imagination, I can be anything I want. A pirate. Arr. A football player. Hup.
A starfish!
Romantic fantasies that are sold to them that they buy and try to resell to women. Again, like I said. So to comment on a video where I literally spoke about you believing in romantic fantasies to amplify another fantasy, Okay? It's crazy work. It's so funny because towards the end, he says that women say that men are cruel. We're not saying that because you just admitted that you're cruel. Men are always having like these kind of underdog fantasies where they're awaiting their moment to get revenge on women, right? If you don't help me when I'm down, then when I get money, I'm gonna leave you for a younger model. They're always dreaming about their opportunity to where they get to do something very cruel to a woman, right? Where they get to leave her for a younger woman after she's been with you for many, many years, right? That is cruel. And you're literally regurgitating a fantasy in which you get to do this cruel thing, then saying that we are the ones who's saying that you're cruel. You tell women that you're cruel. You just told me that you're cruel. Again, men live in potential, promise, and possibility. Okay? Always hypotheticals and never now. Okay? The likelihood that you are going to become successful is very, very slim. Less than 5% of men in this country earn more than $200,000 a year. The odds are not in women's favor to stick beside you in poverty because factual data, statistical evidence says that you are going to pass away having never acquired wealth. Okay? The likelihood that it is going to work against our best interests is very, very, very great. It is improbable that you are ever going to get your revenge on a woman for never helping you. It is improbable that you're going to leave said women for younger models because the facts and the statistics in this country is that men on average end up with women between 2 to 7 years younger than them. Large age gap relationships are not statistically common because the facts are the older you get, the more proximity you lose to younger women. Those are just the facts. That's what's just going to make sense. You're going to lose proximity to them. You're no longer where they are. You no longer have the same interests as them. You're no longer compatible with them. You no longer go to school where they go to school. You no longer go to the events that they go to. You lose proximity to them. And you do not possess the resources or the physicalities necessary to close that gap. Most men are average. You don't possess what's necessary to close the gap between you and younger women. And then for the men who have acquired resources, because they are extremely wealthy, okay, they're wealthy, or maybe they're just really affluent. Maybe they're not wealthy, but they're affluent. They have the Bernice Burgoses in their pool, right? A 50-something-year-old man. He does not need to reach significantly beneath him to date a woman my age because he has 56-year-old women in his pool who look like this. He does not need to do that. That is why the numbers for which large age gap relationships happen are very uncommon. You are believing things that you make up in your mind. This is the romantic fantasy that I am talking about. That you came here under my post to showcase to my followers, to showcase to the public that you are deeply deluded about. If you're telling me, think about how much sense you don't make. If you're telling me the only way that you can spoil me is if I be with you in poverty and help you, the first thing I'm going to think about in my mind is, well, damn, if he needs my help, if him getting to this place in life is so reliant on my help, then that means if I'm that powerful, then that means that I can do it for myself. Then that means that I can do it. What are you talking about? So it doesn't make sense in neither one of those lenses that you look through. There are men who got it right now. Why would I accept that I gotta be with you and struggle and be in poverty and wait and do all this stuff when there are men that got it today, right? And not only that, you're telling me that the only way to get it is if I help you. Like, you can only achieve this thing in life as if it's with me, and that's the only way. Like, I have to contribute to my spoiling. Then that's not spoiling. You see how y'all don't make sense? That would not be you spoiling me. That's not the definition of spoiling. That's you compensating me for all of the unpaid labor that I performed. I'm getting my compensation, right? That's not spoiling, right? And if you need me so bad, then that means that if I'm that powerful that you can't do it unless I do it, unless I help you, then how powerful am I if I just do it myself, right? If I just work my ass off to make sure that I can give myself whatever it is that you're promising me, huh? I'm reminded of that video of that girl that was in her car, and she says men are always trying to tell women that they need to hurry up and buy because they're going to end up, lonely women with cats, right? And she says the life expectancy of a woman is, or just humans period, is like maybe 75 years. And in 60, 50, 40, 30 years from now, I'm going to pass away. And that's the reason why I have to deal with you today. Right? They're living in hypotheticals, fantasy, romantic fantasies, right? They're living in hypotheticals, potential promises and possibilities, right? I am going to pass away. I'm going to meet the age of my expiration date in 60, 50, 40 years from now, and I have to be with you now for that. They're always trying to get your risk and your sacrifice up front, okay, for some future thing that they're promising, and they do this in every capacity possible. Even when you're dealing with them romantically, right? So it depends on where you're at when with a guy. Depends on where you're at with a guy. So let's say they meet you and they're talking to you about, you know, having a family and you getting pregnant and all that stuff, and you know what typically comes after that is all the promises, potential, and possibilities of what they're going to do for you after you bear that risk and sacrifice. Yes? Or maybe they'll come to you and they'll meet you and they're promising you all these, you know, trips. See, men love to promise to take you on trips, right? They're promising you all this stuff. And it's because there's something from you that they want right now, right? They want niceties from you. They want your devotion. So they start promising you, you know, possibilities, more promises, possibilities, and potential. And they do this even as it relates to like business, or even, I'm telling you, every capacity. They're always trying to incite fear and trying to, you know, get you to get your upfront risk and sacrifice right away for some type of fucking promise, right? I had this guy that worked at a place that I do business at, and he starts to talk up to me about this business idea that he had, and I ain't getting into no business with no damn man. I don't got no free labor and no free energy to give you, so I'm not doing it, right? Serving men is my favorite sport. Right. So he starts to say how he wants to have like this flea market, this auto flea market on weekends. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, you know, it'd be good for you to, you know, you would help me on weekends. I'm like, me? He's like, yeah, you know, I'm like, I mean, you work at the business that you know, I'm frequently coming to. You see the amount of volume that I'm bringing on weekends. I wouldn't be able to compensate. I wouldn't be able to accommodate no weekend, nothing. And he's like, well, you know, why not? You know, that's how you build a business. I'm like, oh, because I'm already doing things to earn money. I wouldn't be able to compensate that. I wouldn't be able to accommodate that. And he's like, but that's how you grow a business. So you want my free labor now because of a promise of building a business with you? Of the promise of the business getting to a place where it's going to be able to compensate me later? Delusion. Y'all, men are literally begging us not to help them in life. This is going to be part 3 because I'm doing a series about romantic fantasies, okay, that were sold to men and that they're eating up and they're trying to repackage it to us women. Okay. I had a man comment on my post. Let me not make up what he said. Let me just go. Let me. He says, a man's fantasy is that the woman loves him at his lowest and he spoils her at his highest. Women want to find a man at the finish line and get that. But what y'all don't realize is that a man who became successful by himself doesn't see any value in you. He uses you and discards you for a younger model. These are the same women who leave and end up cry about how all men are cruel when she only... Say I in the comments if you've heard this logic by men at least like 50 times. Please let me know in the comments if you've ever heard a man tell you this. I've had so many men tell me this. I've seen them say this, as a matter of fact. I've saw so many men say this. I've even had family members tell me this. Like male family members tell me like, oh, you know, you're a single woman and you're young, you know, you need to find someone, and you know, you need to this, that, because, and they're telling me that this is the way that I'm going to not be single. Like this is going to be the cure to my singleness. It's just finding a man and building with him and blah, 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 blah. For the same reason, because if you don't build with him and you're trying to find a man who's a finished product, the problem is when they're a finished product, you know, they're not going to want you because you didn't help them build and they're going to pick someone else. Did you catch that? Are y'all hearing that? Okay. Because let me break down how that logic does not make any sense. Okay. So you're telling me that the only way that you're going to want to be with me when you get rich is if I help you. Right? That's what you're saying. I have to help you so that way you can stay loyal to me, right? So that way you can keep me around. But if I don't help you and you get rich, then you're going to leave me for someone else, right? It seems as though, again, this is another fantasy. This fantasy that they're all just going to get rich someday, right? This is another fantasy. Okay. So let's go with this hypothetical story. And in your hypothetical story, you get rich. If I didn't help you, right, and you get rich, and you're going to leave me for someone else, she also didn't help you either. Right? She didn't help you. So you're telling me the way in which women will get the man that they want, that you're claiming that they want, is by not helping you. Because when you get to the position that you want to be in, you're going to select someone who didn't help you. This is what you're saying. This is what you're saying. So then I just shouldn't help you. Right? They are admitting out of their own mouths that when their circumstances change, so does their preference. Because if you can be with this new person when she didn't help you, why can't you be with me when I didn't help you? That's because your circumstance changed, and so did your desire, right? So they're telling us that when their circumstances change, their desire changes too. They're telling us that. You're telling me that I need to earn your loyalty. I have to earn the right to be spoiled, to the right to be in your life when you get rich, but the new person doesn't, she's going to receive it without working. That means that it's not about building with you, right? It's about desirability. So men are telling you what you should be doing with your time instead, right? They want to tell us that it's risky to wait at the finish line, but they're glossing over that. They're also admitting in the same breath that it's risky to help them get there, right? They're telling you what you should do within your time. Instead of spending time to help these bum ass niggas build themselves up, they're telling you what to use that time doing instead, right? Use that time focusing on your skincare, focusing on your body, focusing on your hair, making sure it's really healthy, focusing on your looks, because this is what they value. They're telling you that. Focus on your looks, focus on your body, learn hobbies, learn new skills, focus on making yourself marketable, go learn multiple languages. They're telling you what the fuck to do with your time, right? They don't care about you building with them. As long as they find you desirable, you can come in and reap all the fucking benefits. They're literally telling us that. If I didn't help you build and she didn't help you build, why can't you stay with me? We both didn't help you build, right? But that's because it's desire that they're using, right? So they're also telling us in the same sentence that the women who they're asking for labor to build with them and to be with them in poverty, they don't actually desire those women. And then I know that the rebuttal to this from men will be, oh, well, who's to say he's going to pick you? Who's to say? This is another delusion, right? Where they want to believe that you're sitting around waiting to be chosen by them, right? When that's not what's happening. Women are going to school. Women are doing fitness, right? Women are getting ripped as hell. Women are starting businesses. Women are dating, right? Women are doing a lot of stuff. No one's sitting around waiting for you. This is not 1945. You get there and then your options expand. And then you have what's necessary to go and get them. But we're not waiting at the finish line. That's not what's happening. It doesn't mean that he's going to choose you though. You're just going to get ran through. I think he said that too. I think he actually did say that they're going to use you up and blah, blah, blah and yada, yada, yada. They say that to guilt you, to fearmonger you into being with them when they don't have anything. But one of the reasons why they do that is because you know how they always like to say that, well, you're overestimating your value, and they're the ones who do that, right? See, so when they cannot pique the interest of the women that they actually desire, they settle, right? They just be with whoever it is that's good enough. But then they don't understand why it's appropriate for them to do that, because essentially all women have the same value. What it is that men need from women to secure and ensure their survival, they can get it from any woman. Like an attractive woman and an unattractive woman can all do the same thing, right? We can have children, we can bear children, we can do domestic labor, we can cook, we can clean, we can all do the same. Them having an attractive woman is kind of just like icing on the cake. It's kind of just like a cherry on top. But that reality is not, they're not conceptualizing that reality, because that's what they do. They want to convince women that, well, you cannot be with those men. You can't be with those men, so just might as well be with us. And no, they don't realize that you as an incapable man will never be the runner up to an affluent one. Never. You will never be the second best option. The second best option is literally us being single. Another disconnect that they're having is that if you, a woman, deal with an affluent man, right, a very capable, resourceful man, and even just a short time frame, his ability to do things for you that are going to advance you or alter the trajectory of your life positively, he can do that in that short time frame. Okay, way more than what the men who are functioning at the lowest levels in society can be able to do if you're with them long term. So what are you really saying? What are you actually saying? And then the thing about it is, you're telling me that the only way that you're going to want to stay with me is if I help you. Why do you think that I would want a man to stay with me out of obligation, right? Because I helped him and he just feels indebted to me, or he feels guilty. I don't want no man staying with me because of that. Here's the thing, the variable that never changes, like I said, in their hypothetical fantasy where they get rich no matter if you help them or if you don't. The variable that doesn't change in this hypothetical story is the fact that they're wealthy now, right? So whether I help you or not, it's not going to change that your desire changed. Why would I do the work to help you get closer to the women you actually desire? Like riddle me that. Why would I put in work so that I can be replaced? Why would I perform any labor at all to help you get closer to my replacement? How? So in conclusion, men are conflating love and labor together. Men think they want love, but what they actually want is labor.
Let's jump into my favorite part of all of the content I post on YouTube, and that's just my thoughts, where I get to kind of express what I feel about whatever we have read or gone over. So let's get into it. All right, let's jump into my favorite parts of when we watch these TikTok clips about the takeaways I really want you to get from the perspective of a relationship coach. So I think I have 5 points today. So let's jump into it. Point number 1. Make mutual benefit the standard. Love and self-interest can coexist. Understand that a relationship can be loving and materially/emotionally beneficial to you. That's not cold, that's healthy. When people experience relationships as unfair or one sided, satisfaction drops and resentment grows. An anchor I want you to use is to say, I can care about him deeply and require that his partnership adds to my life. Because think about it. If you care about a man and choose to be with him, but he does nothing but take and drain you, how is that good for you? It's not. It's killing you slowly. And it's sucking all the joy out of your life. And that's not what we want. Ask, do I feel consistently supported, respected, and advantaged, or am I constantly paying in time, money, peace, and effort? Here's some questions to ponder. Where am I routinely in a deficit? Money, emotional labor, time, peace, and what am I getting back consistently? If nothing changes for the next 12 months, would I feel proud of this relationship or depleted by it? Do I feel safer and more expanded in this partnership or smaller and more constrained? Point number 2, treat prove you love me by sacrificing as a power play, not romance. If a man equates love with you shrinking yourself financially, emotionally, sexually, or socially, that's not devotion. It's a power dynamic disguised as traditional love, and it's manipulative. Research on benevolent sexism explains how nice sounding, air quotes, beliefs, like women should be self-sacrificing, men should be centered, can still reinforce dependence and self-erasure. Anchor yourself by thinking, love doesn't require me to be in a permanent deficit. A decision check here is to reflect upon, does he respect my self-interest or does he shame me for having one? Understand a man who shames you for having interest and hobbies outside of his understanding or his own interest is a man who is going to make it a mission to tear you down. Here are some questions to ponder. When I advocate for myself, does he call it selfish, too much, or gold digger energy? And understand when men use those words, that's projection. They're just talking about themselves, okay? Do I feel pressure to be the cool girl who asks for less so he can feel like more? Don't ever be the cool girl. Be his worst fucking nightmare, okay? People hate when I say that, but I mean that from the depths of my soul. If he wants you to change, to fit, to make him comfortable, then you two aren't a good fit together, okay? If my daughter, younger sister, told me this same story, would I call it love or conditioning? Point number 3, don't date men who audition you for a fantasy role. A lot of rage comes from men emotionally invested in a storyline where they'll be older/less desirable and still get a much younger woman just because. In real life, the typical spouse age gap in the U.S. is small. Large gaps exist, but they're not the norm. And also, large gaps tend to exist, just from my anecdotal evidence, in relationships where the man is a lot more well-heeled and established, right? Money is a determining factor, okay, in partnership. And men who don't like that fact usually have not done their own self-work and healing on something that's happened to them. They are very emotionally immature and or indoctrinated into the red pill content, or they just don't like women that much and they just need to accept that and leave women alone and pay for the services from women that they wish to receive. Another thing men get very mad at me when I say. A decision check here is to say, is he choosing me as a whole person or trying to cast me in a script where I abandon my best interest to prove love? And too many rom-coms follow that crap. And a lot of women, especially in the Gen X and millennial age range, have been indoctrinated with such media, starting from Disney movies. Let's be honest. Questions to ponder. Does he like me or does he like what I represent? Status, youth, beauty, access, or proof? Remember, men compete for the attention and adoration and compliments of other men. A lot of times women are seen as an ornament or accessory to that man's life. Does he talk like partnership is built on compatibility or like women are prizes men earn? Once again, they're competing to be cool in the eyes of other men. When I set standards, does he negotiate respectfully or rage because I'm not cooperating with his fantasy? A man who rages at you setting standards and boundaries is a very unsafe person. And you know I'm big on not being around unsafe people. Leave those folks out of your circle and out of your life. That goes for men and women. Point number 4, require now evidence, not future promises. Now, look, I have the pleasure to coach lovely women who are 35 plus and professionals. We are past the looking at potential and thinking that this guy can do something. We're not 20, okay? If he has not begun to tap into his potential and at least have stability, consistent stability in his life, he is not the man for you. That is a man who needs to figure it out with the help of other men on how to get his life in order. If you love me at my lowest, I'll spoil you at my highest is often a pitch that asks you for upfront labor in exchange for a hypothetical payoff. And the I'm definitely going to be rich later storyline is statistically rare at the very high end. And census income reporting shows where typical household income sits and how small the top slices are relative to everyone else. So men who make those promises to a woman by asking her to support him now, it's a setup and it's a con. Not to say that a man isn't driven and wants to be successful, but the fact that he needs the free labor of a woman to do it, that's the con. And that's the part that women need to opt out of. If he is going to be successful and great, let him do it fully on his own merit. Let him do it washing his own drawers and putting a roof over his head, right? That's not your work. That's his work. A question to ponder. Well, I want you to first anchor and say, I don't invest my life into maybes. You wouldn't do that for a job, right? You wouldn't do that for a house. You wouldn't do that for even if you're renting or a car payment. So don't do it when you are interacting with a man in which you are seeking relationship. It's a very poor investment. A decision checkpoint is to say, what is he doing now, today, in behavior, consistency, stability, without me financing it, fixing it, or carrying it? And real talk, a man who's about his business and has his shit together isn't asking a woman for that because he knows that that dynamic is skewed and he's not going to feel like a man if he allows that, right? Questions to ponder. What is he asking me to give right now? Sex, money, time, domestic labor, emotional support. And what is he offering right now? If only thing he's offering is hard penis or bubble gum, leave that man where he is. That is not, you don't need that energy in your life. If I remove my help, would his plan still work? Or is his future, air quotes, dependent on my free labor? Extract yourself from that equation. Absolutely not. Is his life trending upward because of his discipline or because women keep cushioning his consequences? That's a big one. With a lot of boy moms, aunties, grandmoms, overprotective sisters, and the like, there are a lot of men who have been cushioned from the consequences of their own actions, even into middle age in life, because they have women around them who infantilize them and make excuses for them. Don't be even near that type of man, right? It's not good for your mental health. Point number 5, when he attacks your standards, treat it as disqualifying information. Delusional, too picky, you'll die alone. Picking at your age, weight, kids, complexion, features, something very common for Black women to experience. This isn't truth-telling. It often maps out hostile sexism, punishing women who don't comply with what benefits men, right? And tactics like negging, insults framed as jokes to lower your self-esteem so you'll accept less, are recognized manipulation pattern. An anchor here is to say, a man who has to humble me, air quotes, to access me is not safe. Once again, unsafe men, we stay away from them. A decision check would be to really figure out, do I feel more confident after interacting with him or more anxious, defensive, and like I need to prove myself? Some questions to ponder are, after we talk, do I feel calm and clear or do I feel the urge to shrink, explain, or perform? Does he respond to standards with curiosity and effort or with insults and intimidation? Is he trying to understand me or trying to wear me down until I accept what he's offering. Understand that none of these behaviors are unique that I've spoken about for men. These are things that men are socialized into doing. To the extent of that socialization is going to vary slightly culture by culture, but we live in an overall overarching patriarchal system. And if you're in America, like I am, we live in a patriarchal system where it is very hard for men to understand a lot of things because women here have more rights than women in other countries. Not that we don't have forces trying to strip those rights, but at the current time, women have a lot of rights and abilities to make a name for themselves in their own lives. And so men are constantly grappling with that. And they're rushing to red pill content to assuage their ego, to, make them feel good about themselves, coddle them. And the other side of that is this hostile sexism and kind of extreme misogyny that is very dangerous for women. So understand that leaving men where they're at who just think that you're too much or ask for too much is one of the safest things you can do. There are far too many men who believe they're entitled to a woman's time, her labor, her body, her energy, her ideas, her genius, her empathy, just because they exist in a body with a penis attached to it. And that view really has to change for men as a collective to understand. That has to shift from a male collective experience for men to then begin attracting women en masse. I'm talking about, not individuals, to attract women to him, because that's what it's about. Nobody's chasing anybody, but it's about attracting. And men cannot attract women with the energy that many of them currently emit. And that's that they hate women, they're angry at women, and they want to see women suffer to be with them. So if you have ever experienced anything like this, or, have a friend that has, drop a comment below, because I'm curious to hear about other people's situations and what they have tolerated in the past and what you all have learned. So here's the bottom line. Love is not proven by your suffering. If a man needs you to be in a deficit to feel adored, he's not looking for partnership. He's looking for a volunteer, right? You are allowed to be loved and protected, loved and benefited, loved and still choose yourself. We're not doing the Fiona storyline over here. You're not leaving the kingdom to prove you're, air quotes, real. You're not moving into a swamp to earn love. You're not financing potential while he calls your standards delusional. A healthy man doesn't require your sacrifice to validate himself. He brings value and builds with you, as well as he has his own when he got into your face, with you in the present, okay? Understand that future promises don't count. Love me at my lowest and I'll spoil you later is not romance. It's a pitch for you to be a ride or die and to be used. Do not fall for it. And your life is not a layaway plan. Choose men who show you consistency now, in the immediate, in the future, in your face. Choose men who can honor your self-interest without punishing you for it. If you want practical tools to date with clarity, questions to ask, patterns to watch for, and how to hold standards without guilt, come join my exclusive coaching community on Coffee, and we get into all this good shit. That's all for now. Love you guys. See you in the next video.